Hello, everyone. And today we have John with us. John is a Palestinian activist who lives in the UK. He has a very long and interesting story that I think we would like to hear, and he's going to tell us this evening. I know John personally. He's an old friend of mine, I suppose, and I'm very interested to actually hear a bit more detail about his life and his perspective on the Palestine-Israel conflict. So thank you, John, for joining us. It's great to see you, John.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
And so, John, I think there's a lot to unpack with a conversation about Palestine and the conflict. I don't think we can cover everything. You would need hours and hours of discussion to understand the history and some of the characters and some of the organizations. So I think we'll talk about the current situation a bit later. I think we'd like to begin with your story itself. So where in Palestine you're from and a bit about your upbringing.
Well, actually, my family come from a little town called Luda, which is now Tel Aviv, where they have their airport actually built in the ruin of my village, And 1948, my family forced out of Palestine, 1948, ended up being refugees in Gaza. One of the refugee camp called Beach Camp. And that time, obviously, my father was given a task to run the United Nations operations in the Gaza Strip. Was a mandate by United Nations. So I was between the States and Gaza due to my father's job. Yeah, and then but
you grew up then. Once you moved away from, sorry, get the name there. Lubna, is that right?
Sorry.
The name of the village. Sorry, was it Lubna?
It's a Luda.
Luda. Okay.
Yeah, Luda. Yeah.
So you then grew up in Gaza once you moved from Luda.
Yes, obviously, I don't grow up in Gaza. I actually born in Gaza at that time, and then when my dad got the job by United Nations, I was commuted between the States and Gaza, but most of the time I stayed in Gaza. When I grew up, I stayed more in the States, studied there, and grew up in between Chicago and Ohio. And then in 1987, the situation changed completely in December 1987, December 8th, where the first Intifada started. Intifada means uprising, Palestinian uprising in Gaza and West Bank. And what happened that morning, as you know, most of the laborers work inside the 1948 occupied Palestine by the construction business. And while the workers coming back from Tel Aviv, Palestinian bus, an Israeli truck driver deliberately stopped in the middle of the road and collided face to face with that bus. And then he came out of his bus to a car was actually parked on the side of the road and take the car and run away. Obviously, if this is a local Palestinian coming back to the strip, if this was a normal accident, the driver will not already organize a little car waiting for him, leaving his truck and run away from that truck to a car waiting for him and escape the scene, So that scene where the Palestinians deliberately attacked. Okay, what happened then? Those Palestinians who got killed and injured in the hospital, they come from different parts of the strip, Gaza Strip. So let's say one person was from Rafah city, also one person from Jabalia refugee camp died. Each city and each camp, each little town had the demonstrations, So at that time, the so-called peacemaker criminal rabbin,
Mhm.
actually decided to respond by using force.
So was that the Israeli leader at the time?
Israeli defense minister at that time.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah. So at the same time, all these people was taken to a main big hospital in Gaza City called Al Shifa Hospital. Okay. They had a big list there of who died, who got injured. So those people who, the families, mothers or fathers, went to the hospital, end up taking their kids back, dead bodies, to bury them in that town. And each town they got a body or two. Obviously, they have a big demonstrations against the occupation, and then they will send the force. And during that attack back against the Palestinians, more Palestinians got killed. So basically, the demonstration and the resistance to the occupiers, obviously intense resistance, and they spread from Gaza to West Bank. And that's what they call it, Palestinian Intifada. At that time, I was giving a job to cover the Gaza West Bank for NBC in the American TV.
News.
Yeah. So I was traveling from Gaza to West Bank and attending demonstrations and areas with the clashes with the Zionist army. And I was seeing a lot of the crimes and torture. And one of the main thing I done actually, I was in outside a little camp called Jenin camp in West Bank. And Palestinian youth was throwing stones at the Zionist army, and then they been ambushed by the army. One of them tried to escape. He ended up going down in the valley. So he was cut off from the camp where he's supposed to run to the camp to hide within the population. He was actually stray from the camp to the bottom of the valley. They chased him there, and nearly 11 soldiers was picking up stones and breaking his arms. I did take that footage and was actually aired the same evening. That's caused an argument. Well, that's caused an anger by the Zionists, and they start looking for me, obviously, because they're angry, because that's a brutal, one young man, about maybe 18, 20, being attacked by 11 soldiers by picking up stones and breaking his arms and shoulders. They did, obviously, this the only democratic state in Middle East, the only lovely human rights guardians, to commit such crimes. And that's where Shimon Peres, at that time, he came out and he said, our main enemy is the camera. So he wanted the crime to be committed in the dark.
Right.
Because don't forget, there is $4 billion goes every year to maintain the illegal Zionist occupation. And to have the Americans watching, the Zionist army attacking one youth, So that was really where it triggered my situation, where I became wanted. And it was difficult for them to take action, such as arrests, because American media, and I'm a citizen of the state at that time. So the best solution is to kill me, and how to do it. When I appear in an area where clashes, they will shoot me and say, well, by mistake, we're shooting at Palestinians throwing stones. And that's what happened lately with Shireen Abu Akleh from the
Al Jazeera.
So she was not lucky. I was lucky because in the entire 1988, December 87, the Palestinian Intifada started. 1988, 1 year I was shot 4 times.
4 times?
4 times, different times. And one of them actually missed the heart by half a centi. You know, I have a scars in my back with about 9 pieces of metal.
Wow.
You know, fragmented bullets. They used every bullets. They used every method of crimes.
And they shot you sort of while you were filming?
Yes,
or
yes,
yeah.
yes. But then that if I got killed, that'd be justified. That it was actually a mistake because we are shooting at the youth who were endangering the life of the well-equipped Zionist soldier with the stones, and you became a history. You know, so in this situation, I got in touch with one very lovely woman. She was a solicitor, an Israeli solicitor, Tamara Belig, and she told me that because they have access, they are treated different than the Palestinians, Israeli solicitors. You know, she said, I really think the best thing to do, you must leave because they put you on the list to kill you. You know, so we made a deal through her for deportation, means I leave and never come back. In August 1989, I left the country to the States. I never been back to that country since August 30, 1989. I remember, yeah. So that's the way I escaped, you know. Other one which is upset the more is I then I joined book with an ex-Israeli soldier who became anti-occupation, called Yoram Benor, and the title of the book was "My Enemy Myself." Right, and just to explain the idea of the title, "My Enemy Myself," it's a copycat of a German, white German individual who decided to work in a German factory. But he painted himself black completely. He tried to obviously write about racism in Germany that time. He died from that chemical he used later.
I see.
But he wrote a book called
Black.
No, he called the title of the book is Black Like Me.
Right.
But we use the same tactic of so what happened is the Yoram somehow he was a Russian background. His dad Russian, but his Arabic was nearly 99.9. And why his Arabic was, I hope, stop me if I stray, you know, because...
No, it's fine. You're fine. This is good. Yeah.
I'm old man. I start talking about maybe trees.
No, it's very interesting. I'm following. I think our listeners are following too.
Yeah, his Arabic comes from, if you remember, 1982, the Zionist invasion of Lebanon. And they want to use the same tactic, which is the Reagan used in Nicaragua, something called Contra. So the Israelis picked up an ex-retired Lebanese general called Saad Haddad, and they created a little army for him under the Israeli supervision to attack the Palestinian resistance and the Lebanese resistance. Yoram was somebody who was sent there to train these traitors, on using guns and name it. So he got his Arabic from that time because he spent years doing that. And then suddenly something happened to him. Maybe he woke up in the morning and he noticed this wrong. He became an anti-Zionist, an anti-occupation. I worked for a few newspaper, and then in the end he ended up working for Channel 12. Israeli, and then I believe he left, I don't know what he's doing now. we're not getting in touch for a long time. And that experience, that that's funny. His Arabic was 99.9. My Hebrew was very, very good.
Right.
Yeah. So he had to pose in Gaza as a Palestinian from America.
Because of his accent? Or?
Yeah, just in case of the,
Right.
this is interesting. He went to Jabalia camp. Jabalia camp is one of the biggest camps in Gaza.
Okay.
Right. As Fathi Awad, who is an American Palestinian, just to try to record how the Palestinians see the conflict, And I had to end up being in Tel Aviv, Obviously, I was that time young and handsome, not ugly like now, And I had to spend a week with an Israeli woman called Mary, right? It's all designed, wasn't like a coincidence. I followed her in a coffee shop for a few times, and Mary, she was working in Gaza, in prison, but she didn't know what my mission,
Okay.
And she was telling me about how they treat the Palestinian women. So she used to torture Palestinian ladies,
So just to clarify, so she was an Israeli woman working in Gaza?
Yeah.
Okay. At the camps, at some of the refugee camps?
No, she was working in an Israeli jail, torturing Palestinian women.
Okay, right.
But she didn't know who I am, She see me with a little hat, She think,
oh, you're wearing a...
Okay, because you can't take a risk to be exposed,
Sure.
And I remember one night Yoram was in Jabalia camp, and he had a letter from Faisal Hosseini. Faisal Hosseini was like a Arafat ambassador to Jerusalem, in a way. So Faisal gave him a letter just in case he got caught. He would have to say, "No, look, I'm not Mossad agent. This is a letter from Faisal Hosseini. I support Palestine." So I left him in Jabalia camp with a young artist. He was staying in his house. And somehow at night, the young artist, the camp, a refugee camp, small houses.
Yes.
So Yoram was in the same room, sleeping, and Fathi, Dr. Yoram was calling himself Fathi Awad, and happened to be the artist called Fathi Gabin, famous artist in refugee camp. And he heard him saying in Arabic, "I hope nobody will catch me," something like this. So he went and searched in his bag. And then he called me. He said, "I think the man in my house, he's a Mossad agent."
Mossad agent, okay.
I said, look, don't do anything. Don't say anything. I'm coming. I was in West Bank.
Yeah.
I was in Jerusalem. I said, "I'm coming to see you in the morning." I went in there. And he said, "Your friend is a Mossad agent." He was saying, "I hope nobody will catch me." I said, "What do you mean?" He said he was saying in Arabic. I said, "Oh, wait a minute." I went for a coffee, and I showed him Faisal letter.
Right.
He said, "Oh, okay, that's fine. If this is the case, that's fine." So that's one incident. Yoram nearly got maybe killed or hanged in Gaza.
Right. I see.
Yeah. I managed to perform very well.
Yes.
So
I just want to ask a question about this woman then. So she confessed to you. She told you that she was torturing Palestinian women.
She said that's what job. That's what her job. Obviously she didn't say the methods of torture, but obviously I interrogate Palestinian girls and who are involved in terrorist, the language, and I was like, all right, so I was recording her,
right?
but not recording her for TV or social media. We wrote a book, so we were writing the information down.
Gotcha.
And Yoram was recording people there in Gaza, And then I remember we take a taxi from Gaza to a city called Jaffa.
Yeah.
And Jaffa, there is a slave market, where
What
Palestinians,
market?
slave market, where Palestinians picked up every morning to work in construction for
Okay.
a cheap labor. So they have a spot every morning. The Palestinians gather there, and the Israeli come and say, "I need a builder. I need whatever." Okay, so I take this Palestinian taxi driver, who bring Palestinians from Gaza to Jaffa, and I went together with Yoram to the airport to see how the Palestinian treated in the airport, especially when they have the Palestinian Gaza plate number.
Mm.
And the minute we arrive, they just stopped us. They take me in to be interrogated while I'm there, right? Fathi, which is Yoram carrying a fake ID that he's a Palestinian. And the Palestinian guy was tortured by the soldiers at the entrance of the airport. They make him take all his wheels off, seats off. He treated really very bad. But the good thing about it, we have a guy from cameraman. We hired a cameraman from Haaretz. Haaretz is a newspaper.
Yeah.
And he was recording everything on camera. They couldn't do anything to him because he was showing he's obviously a Haaretz cameraman. Yeah. And then what happened when the book came out? I became wanted.
The one that you wrote with the ex-Israeli soldier.
Yeah. I became.
His name was Ben. Sorry, is that right? Or
Yoram Benur.
Yoram Benur. Okay, Yoram Benur. Sorry.
And that's where I became really targeted. Where they shot me in the heart, next to my heart.
Wow. Did they ever arrest you and try and interrogate you?
Several times, yeah, several times. I was kept in detention for 6 months. Okay.
6 months.
And you know why? 6 months. I used to have a press office in Gaza. Okay. At that time, the Palestinian flag is not allowed.
Illegal.
They would take you to jail if they find a flag. Palestinians draw them in the street, like the graffiti, they put them in the street, but you find it in your house or in your bucket, you're guaranteed to go to jail. So in my office, I have a big, massive flag of Italy.
Okay.
Because get the same colors.
Same colors, right.
So when they invaded the office, they said to me, "Oh, why you have the Italian flag?" I said, "Because I like Italian flag." They said, no. You wanted to say that this is a Palestinian flag. I said, no, it's not. It says Italy. Anyway, they take me to jail, and 3 days later, I appear in front of a military judge. And my crime that I carried, I had a flag in my office. My intention is to be a Palestinian flag, So I asked the judge. I said to him, if the soldier came to my house or my office and they find a watermelon, can I be arrested? And he said, are you being clever with me? I said, no, I'm asking you if the officer came to my house or my office, find a watermelon. See, because I was an American citizen, I can speak more than normal Palestinians. Can I get arrested? He said, well, explain to me. I said, because the watermelon outside the green and then white, the seeds are black and inside red. It is a flag, He said, because you try to be clever, I want to ask you to pay. Well, today money will be like $500. I said, no. He said, why? You want to pay an installment? I said, no, because I don't want to pay for your bullets to kill Palestinians. He said, then I'll sentence you 6 months in the detention camp. Military base. It's not like a jail, but it's a jail. But you live in a military camp, like a military camp with tents, military tents. And this was in Negev. Negev is like a desert area.
Okay, in the desert, right? Okay, got you.
Yeah, so I met a lot of people there. I come with a lot of stories because I find a lot of youth who arrested for throwing stones, you know. And then they was accusing me of using the TV car to smuggle leaflets and flags, and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they was putting all this accusation about me doing all these activities. And one of the things they want me to tell them that, because in 1997, when they have, 87, when they have the Intifada, they have an underground leadership.
Yes.
Nobody knows who they are. But we know who they are because we do interview them. Yeah. But we will not know where they are because when we go to a spot to interview somebody, they will not let you know where they are. They take you in a car, you can see nothing.
Right. Yeah.
But they want me to help them to know where they are because they know I interview these people. I said, no, I can't do that. Because if I do that, two things will happen to me. One, I lose my job or trust from the local. Second, I'll be shot. Third, I will not be your traitor. You want them, go look for them. So that's where the relationship went really, it was no relationship. The attitude became really very hostile. And as I said to you, I was deported.
No. Yes. Yeah.
I was twice on house arrest.
Right.
Yeah, you can't leave for 6 months. One was signed by Rabin. One was signed by a defense minister called Moshe Arens.
Right.
So a total year, two separate orders. So your activity is very limited.
Right. This is obviously in Gaza, under house arrest in Gaza, right?
Yeah. So they could come anytime if you're not home.
And right, I see. And while you were either in the camp, the one in the desert, or under house arrest, or any other time, I mean, when the Israelis interrogated you, I assume they asked you questions at some point. What was that like?
Well, number one, they're interested to know who they are, the underground leadership. Number two, who is the activist? They mean military activists, people who throw cocktail Molotov, consider to them dangerous, And then who is the organizers? Because each camp, they have their own committee. See, if you want to break the whole, obviously, process, you have to go. You can't get the roots, which is the underground leadership, but you can defeat them by control the camps and arrest those who incite,
yes,
activities against the Zionist army. So I will not really obviously give this information, and nobody will do that.
Right.
Not because I'm a journalist, because I'm an anti-occupation, and I obviously not willing to support the legal occupation of the Palestinian land, the Palestinian people. So that's two major things happen with me.
Yeah, I understand. So when they tried to find this information out, would they threaten your family? Would they torture you? What kind of methods would they try and use to get information?
Okay, I tell you what happened. One morning, I used to receive delegations from Europe and the United States, and I used to take them to the camps like a tour. To a family lost their child or son, woman, husband in jail, so they can actually interview these people and take info. And one morning, I had a call from this group who said they come from Norway. Said yes. They said, we are 5. We would like to come down and take us around to the Gaza Strip. I said, okay. What time we should meet? We'll meet 9 o'clock. Where? They said outside the United Nations headquarters. But happened that United Nations headquarters in a very, very quiet area. Few houses around.
Mm-hmm.
It's nearly on the beach of the Gaza Strip,
Mm-hmm.
Gaza City, on the beach. So it's an ideal place if you wanted to kidnap somebody. 9 in the morning, are likely to have any cars coming that way, only United Nations cars. So I went there, and I was young and stupid. I didn't think, anything. I waited there, and suddenly an Israeli military jeep drove past me. But he must be calling the undercover, telling, "Oh, he's there." This delegation, they asked me, "How are we going to identify you? Because we're not from here." I told them, I'll have a blue shirt,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Next thing, they don't show up. So I decided to leave the area so I can take a taxi in the main road. The minute I left the area, a car came behind me, speeding, and the guy in the back seat opened the door, which has hit me in the back. So I went in my face. They handcuffed me, and they put obviously a sack on my face. Yeah,
Yeah.
And they drove. They was going circle, just to show that they are really very far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I know that they're not far.
Mm.
Anyway, I ended up going to a little city adjacent to Gaza Strip called Ashkelon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was taking out of a car. I could hear children playing outside.
Mm.
It looked like this civilian building. They have an office there within the civilian building. So I was taken to this, and then I was asked in the interrogation to give them information, and I refused. They said, "Okay, well, nobody knows you are with us. Okay, so we could shoot you and spread rumors that you was killed by Fatah or by other Palestinian factions,
Mm-hmm.
and then everybody knows you are a traitor." So the tactic was psychologically that I'll be killed, not only get killed, I'll be considered as a traitor for the Israelis. So I said, no information, I know nothing, I know this. He kept me from nearly 10 o'clock till about 7 evening. But suddenly, at 7 evening, I was taken to another room, and then I was asked to wash my face. They gave me a comb. They told me dress nice, because, I was shackled. And then a member of the Red Cross came in and take me, escort me out back to Gaza. It looked like somebody reported, and most likely one of the United Nations cars happened to be in the area, and they reported. I was known in Gaza, so if I get missing, they will know that I'm missing. So they take me back, and that was the only time they use really severe tactic of forcing me to give info, and that was actually the only way, for them. They think they will get info about my activity and who I'm dealing with.
I see.
Not giving any food, any drink for that time. There was coming bad cop and good cop. He want to kill you, and he want to. But I'm trying to say, look, he will make a deal, and and I know this tactic, obviously.
Right.
This is one of the severe experience I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Just another one then is over the last 30 years, how Palestine and Gaza and West Bank, how they've been run has changed somewhat. But people usually talk about apartheid and how the system there, how it's run, is an apartheid system. And you talked about you would take only certain taxi drivers could come out of Gaza. I know obviously now that things might have changed in the blockade of Gaza and the wall, but this idea of apartheid. I mean, I don't know if you can maybe talk about that. How does it play out? What does it look like? This system there?
Well, to be honest with you, I was sometimes surprised how late people calling the Zionist entity as apartheid. If you look at the laws of that regime from day one, it is an apartheid regime. Number one, you cannot marry a Jew. Okay?
In Gaza or in
Palestine? Anyway, in Palestine, 1948 Palestinians who are nearly 2 million people, they're not allowed to marry a Jewish woman.
Wow.
It's a law. This is in the parliament.
Wow.
And people talk about it today. This is talk about 1948. We are now in 2023. There's no mix in schools. No Palestinian 1948. When I say Palestinian 1948 means Palestinian who carry an Israeli identity. Yeah, they're not allowed to go to the same schools. Yeah, a scholarship in universities not allowed to the Palestinians unless you are a Palestinian in 1948 served in the army. So first you had to go to kill people in Gaza West Bank to deserve a scholarship.
Right.
Schools, children's schools, if you look at the education from age 5, Arabs are dirty people. Arab is your enemy.
That's what they teach them.
It's there. I'm not accusing them. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still today. And by the way, there is a woman in Oxford. She's an Israeli woman. She wrote about that, about the education from day one to the Israeli children. Songs of children saying, "I want to kill an Arab." Send the Arab to the oven.
Right.
Same language of the Nazis. When the Nazis, you say, send the Jews to the oven. Yeah. Now, if this is not apartheid, I don't know what is this. Now, in Jerusalem, for example, because it's Jerusalem divided in a way, West and East. West Jerusalem is totally 100% Israeli. East, there are a lot of Palestinians, but there is also now a lot of settlers moving there and stealing land. Okay. If a young man like you, a Palestinian, go to the West Jerusalem to a nightclub and seen with a Jewish woman, there's a group of fascists. They wear yellow shirts. They come and beat you up. They murder you. They're operating under the eyes of the so-called government, police. That's the same thing with the black shirts, Nazis.
Sure.
Brown shirt. Yeah. So if this is not racism and apartheid, I don't know what they call that. In the transport, Palestinians from so-called Israel had a private car plate number. Start with the number 9. So they identify you are a real Israeli, Jew or Palestinian Israeli. So you'd be harassed and stopped and checked, even though Palestinians in 1948 they do not carry Israeli passport. Their passport is like an ID. So you're not citizens of that country.
Right.
Yeah. The budgets for the cities, I'm not even talking about Gaza West Bank, to be honest with you, because under military regime. I'm talking about even within the so-called Zionist entity. Palestinian villages budget is not even 10% of the budget to next door village, which is an Israeli village.
Yeah. So they're underfunded. Yeah.
Yes. So obviously you have to look at it from day one, and now people saying, "Oh, apartheid." The only reason they trigger the issue of apartheid is the war. Yeah. Now you have roads.
The wall. It's the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you have roads in the West Bank, roads for Jews, roads for Palestinians. You cannot drive in the same road. It says big sign, Jewish only.
Right.
There's nothing hidden. It's not, people saying,
Yeah.
oh,
I agree. Yes. Yeah. So
it's apartheid regime. Oh, apartheid regime. There's a big sign in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. Jewish motorist only.
Jewish motorists only. Yeah. And then a separate road for Arabs.
Yeah. This road actually built on a stolen land in the middle of beaver farms, because led to the settlements. Because if you think about it, to take a settler from a settlement to a city of Jerusalem, had to be escorted by military jeeps. It's a costly, is it?
Yeah.
It's the same situation with the Algerian and French settlers in Algeria. To move from A to B, it was costing the French army. In the end, they gave up after years of resistance, and nearly 2 million of Algerian victims. So, to be sure they're secure to travel alone, they take all this land, they build the highways, and imagine how many settlements there. All actually did a net of highways built, especially from settlements to Tel Aviv, settlements to Jerusalem. And also an expense of the Palestinian farmer land. And this is only for to accommodate the fascist right-wing Jewish settlers who came from Brooklyn and Europe, stealing Palestinian land. So I mean,
actually,
what else in apartheid? What else in apartheid we should say? And under the apartheid in South Africa, that time, I mean, even Desmond Tutu, when he visited Palestine, he said that's worse than apartheid South Africa. Even apartheid South Africa was really bad.
Yes.
So car accident, you send the ambulance, the white medic said, no, sorry, it's a black victim. It's the same thing. Israeli medics will not pick up a Palestinian man get injured. It's a copycat, and even more to make Desmond Tutu and Mandela to say, and Mandela's son who visits Palestine to say, we love apartheid South Africa was nice comparing to this.
Right. Well, there's one thing I think I do remember Desmond Tutu saying was that even under South African apartheid there was never a wall. They never had a wall, a big wall like this.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I know that the wall is quite a recent thing. It's not necessarily from the start, 1948, but you have these turnstiles where you have to come with your book. And in South Africa, the book, you had the pass book. Dom Pass was the book that every person had to carry it. But if you were a black person and you were passing through a white area, and the police stopped you, you would have to hand over, and if you didn't have a good reason to be in that area, you could be locked up and detained. So, but this sounds exactly like it is in Israel.
Palestinians carry an ID, plastic card, like your Barclays Bank.
Yes.
When you come to checkpoint, right? Because there is a 500 checkpoint in West Bank.
Right.
Jesus. Which means if I want to travel from Birmingham to Manchester, it takes me an hour and a half. If I want to travel under the occupation from Birmingham to Manchester, it takes me 10 hours.
Because of the stops, queuing up, stopping, stopping.
There is a mobile checkpoint too. Means Israeli jeep can be driving. Suddenly he stops, he put a checkpoint. And then what happens is you hand over that card. In that card, all your information. Let's say your cousin was arrested for activities. You get arrested.
You get arrested because
cousin? Yes, because you are a cousin of a terrorist. Palestinians to travel from West Bank,
Mhm.
from Jerusalem to Bethlehem,
Mhm.
20 minutes. I traveled several times. 20 minutes. Now it takes 4 hours.
Jesus.
They created the cages like the cows.
Yes, the turnstile.
The cattle,
Yeah.
the cages. Yeah. They seen these people every day traveling. They ask you every day where you going,
Every,
your name, your mother, your father, where you live.
mm.
Every day they see you.
Yeah.
It's not like suddenly Richard come from UK to visit Jerusalem. I'm gonna say, who is this Richard? Well, Richard lives there.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the soldier who stopped you. Yeah, he's seen you 10 times before. But to make it difficult for you, to make life so miserable for the Palestinians, that is their psychological war.
Right.
Psychological warfare against Palestinians. Kids in school, to travel to school, right? They stop them, search their bags. They're arresting children. Here, they said the human right and children underage and against Geneva Convention. Geneva Convention for them is a toilet paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know what is the definition of. I wish they will have to be honest with you, Richard, I wish they'll have a war all the way from the sea to the border of Jordan, and when they're there, Palestinians there. They want to see them. They're in love with ghettos. This Zionist.
In love with what? Sorry.
Ghettos. The big
Ghettos.
Ghettos. Ghettos. They're putting Palestinians the same. I said all the time. Today, the Palestinians is the Jewish of yesterday, and the so-called Israeli Jews are the Nazis, the German Nazis. It's just reverse. And if you look at the psychology, it's the same thing. The same language. They arrested a guy last week. After 7 days, he died in jail. Well, sorry, not 7 days. He'd been there for 3 months.
This is the guy on the hunger strike, right?
Yeah. But this is his 5th time hunger strike. Qadr Adnan. And they killed him.
Yeah.
This is what it's under the eyes of the international, so-called international community. The ICC. You heard the ICC.
Yes.
The issue a joke arresting Putin.
Yes.
You know why? Because Putin was accused of removing a member of a family or children from Ukraine to one. The Palestinians removed daily hundreds of them, villages, and the ICC guy can see
no
that.
Warrant. No arrest warrant forever, at any time, for any of them. Yeah. Where is the arrest warrant for the Israelis, right? Exactly.
Yes. The Palestinians village called Musaffar village, actually in Hebron. The whole village was removed and destroyed, including the mosque. I don't know the ICC guy having whiskey that day or cognac. I don't know what he drinks.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought this up. It's a very good example of
and that's why South Africa pulled out.
Yes,
Because
this is why.
She said clearly. She said, "What about the Palestinians?"
What about the
I said, "Who? We don't know. Where are the Palestinians?"
Right. I mean, everything you've described, though. I mean, talking about the identity cards. This is almost identical to the Dome Pass system of South African apartheid.
Yes.
Talking about roads, roads for Jewish only and Arabs only. Different schools.
Yes.
And sort of only getting scholarships if you do certain things, not access to the same thing. But okay,
I tell you something forgot to mention. They commit crimes that nobody ever think of. In 1987, sorry to stop you for 1 second. 1987, every year in this country we change the time, summer, winter.
Yes.
In 1987 and 1888, the Palestinians changed the time. The Israelis actually changed the time from winter to summer, let's say.
Yeah.
A kind of a resistance to the Zionist entity. The Palestinians said, no, we're going to follow the old time. Don't tell us when to change our time. So what they were doing now in Gaza, the Israelis, they're stopping people, and first thing they do, they catch you from your left hand, look at your time. So you time 9, but they're time 10. You hold your arm like this and break it from the elbow.
Wow.
This is was Rabin Balassi. Rabin Balassi. What he got a Nobel Prize. Shimon Peres.
Well, this is a famous person who they broke his arm.
No, everybody. You just stop in the street. If your time different than their time, they broke your arm.
Break arm there.
Yeah.
Right.
I interviewed a young man who was sitting outside his house. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was summer. Gaza is hot in the summer. And this man, he had a tattoo here. And the tattoo happened to be a Palestinian flag.
Okay.
Do you believe it or not, the soldiers arrested him on the spot outside his house and cut the skin.
Oh, they cut the tattoo off.
Yeah, and I interviewed this man in Shifa Hospital myself. Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
I seen it myself. I interviewed. He told me there's a witness. The neighbors told me the story. I talked to different people who didn't know what they're going to ask them. And ask her, what happened to this guy? Oh, the soldier done this. I mean, the crimes is like
these are horrendous crimes. Horrendous.
Yeah. That's, I just thought to mention the time changing, just for the time.
No, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting also that the Palestinians were using the time as a way of resistance, a form of resistance.
You will not see that in Western media.
No. I mean, this is particularly why I wanted to speak to you, is because to hear these stories and hear this perspective and hear
how this lovely Zionists who finding a safe haven, escaped the Nazis, poor guys, can commit such a crime.
Right.
But people don't look at the back. I mean, in 1967, there's an edition of New York Times. I have it somewhere in my file. Big demonstration in New York. What it says in the banners: pay $1, kill an Arab.
Be a what? Sorry.
Pay $1.
Pay $1. Kill an Arab.
Yeah, in New York City.
Jeez.
In New York Times.
Yeah.
And people say today to me, the Israeli Apartheid system. Really? You just wake up now.
Yes, you only realize it now. Exactly. Yeah. No, this has been going on for 70 years. Yeah.
Have you heard of a guy called Mick Bellid?
Say the name again. Sorry.
Mick Bellid.
No, I don't know.
He wrote a book called "My Father Was a General."
My father was a general. Okay.
You should interview him. Yeah. If you don't introduce him and he speaks, you think he's a Palestinian.
Okay, but he's Israeli.
His dad was a top general, actually.
Okay, I see.
And he's in California now. I can send you his link sometimes. I interviewed him one time, actually.
That would be great. I'd love to interview him. Yeah. So he talked about how the state works and what does he talk about?
Yes, he talked about the apartheid state. He talked about himself as an Israeli American visiting with the Palestinian kufiya, how he's been treated. Imagine, what about the Palestinian? Having a flag, and the reason I mention him because I want to say something to you. His sister, she carried different name because he carried her husband name. She teach in Oxford University, and she actually focused a lot on the Israeli education system for children. I was telling you earlier to tell them kill the Arabs and Arab enemy, or this, racist education for children. So they actually brainwash the children from age 5. She wrote a lot about that, this woman. That's his sister. And how Bellid became a supporter of Palestine. His sister's daughter was killed, one of the suicide bombs. In Ibiza. Yeah. And these people thought, wait a minute, must be a reason for this to happen. We kill Palestinians killing Israelis. So they don't take it as an hatred or became anti-Palestinian Zionist. became a friend of the Palestinians, understanding what happened. And Belid been for the last 20 years activist in California and all over the world in support of Palestine. And lately he wrote a book, 2 years ago, he wrote a book titled My Father Was a General.
Okay.
And I told him, in the interview, I told him I interviewed his dad. When I was in Jerusalem, his dad was in the army. He was
I see.
I interviewed him. And he actually issued arrest his father to arrest me, because when I interviewed him, it's through a friend who knows him. He told me he can meet me in his house, right? So when I went with the TV crew to his house, I started talking to him, obviously in Hebrew. He had a military jacket, okay?
Right. Yeah.
But the bottom was a pajama. and I was told not to
film the bottom half. Yes. Yeah.
Because he was sitting behind the desk.
Right.
I did show that, and he got angry,
So that was the arrest warrant was because you filmed him in his pajamas.
Yeah, that's his father, actually.
So this is the father of the guy who wrote the book.
He laughed when I told him the story. He laughed. He said, I see it as a joke. I didn't really get angry. He said, I said, but he's a military man. He will not like it.
Serious guy.
So I was a bad guy. I was a bad guy, so I used to do bad things.
I've got some questions then. So you mentioned, we've discussed, of course, the apartheid system, how it works, and various elements. So the Arabs that get to sit in the Knesset, in the parliament. So
in the Knesset,
you have the elected. What about these guys? What about these Arabs? What's the situation there?
We see the Arab in the Israeli parliament, so-called Knesset, they are treated like the mayor of the city. What the mayor actually job in England is to be sure that people got a clean road, rubbish being removed, school been running. Yeah, these guys when they get elected, I mean, other than the rubbish in the streets and school budget, they can't get nowhere, because you talk about 11 seats.
Right, 11. Okay.
11 seats, not even 1% of the 62.
Right.
So when they want to vote for anything, the parliament is a Zionist parliament, right wing. You have so-called left wing merits. One guy sitting alone since Jesus' crucifixion. He's sitting there. He said, no, yes, no. He had no power.
Right.
So the 11th seat became a 12 with an extra Israeli liberal Zionist. I can't say left wing, So any proposal to be shut down.
So just to understand, so they have around 11 seats. Out of how many seats are in the Knesset?
60.
60. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Good. Okay.
It's a good number, but not good enough to pass any laws.
Yeah, not enough to pass the vote. Yeah. So carry on. Go ahead. As you were saying.
The good number to try to support certain government by saying Netanyahu running for office, he's short of 10 seats. We give you our seats if you give us some ice cream.
Yes.
But not like, if you ease the checkpoint in Gaza West Bank, if you stop the settlement. No, it just my village, the village needed water. We are in 2023 now. The Palestinian land was occupied, so-called the creation of the Zionist entity, 1948. Yeah. 76, 77 years.
Yeah.
There's some villages now inside the entity, Palestinian villages, with no water, with no right roads. Do you know some villages till today got no electricity?
No electricity.
Till now. And I challenge anybody who going to listen to your show to come back and say, I want to challenge this man.
Sure.
any information I give you, I want somebody to call you back and said, no, I want to come on the show and tell this man he's a liar.
There we go. Open challenge to anyone listening who doesn't believe.
Yes. Anytime, and I pay also. If you want to challenge, and I pay him money too. Every time we find a lie, I give him £100.
There we go. We'll do that. £100 for anyone who wants to debate.
If you find four lies, I get £400. Where you can get that?
There we go. There's your offer. Open challenge for anyone there.
Yeah. So 23, we're in 23 days, villages with no electricity, and they're supposed to be Palestinian citizens. Israeli citizens.
Israeli citizens. Yeah.
Forget about their background. Yeah.
It's
just imagine my area here in Birmingham. We have a large majority of, Pakistanis, British Pakistani background.
Yes.
Right. Imagine this area get no water, no electricity. What will happen here? Be a crime. Maybe big ha-ha about it.
They would.
This country, so-called, I don't call it a country, to be honest with you. It's a Zionist settlement.
Zionist settlement, right.
It's a Zionist settlement. This Zionist entity, within their own population, yeah? Okay, let me ask a question. If you, a Palestinian teacher, want to teach in Israeli school, what are the chances? One of the requirements, did you serve the country? What do you mean? Have you enlisted in the army?
In the army.
No. You're enemy of the state.
Yeah.
Why you're not enlisted in the army? It's your country. See, that time became your country. So if you're a student, at the universities, as a Palestinian student, cannot have accommodation within the campus, unless you have an ID that you actually serve the army.
I see. So the conscription serves as a way of controlling who can do what job. So that's actually, in a sense, it's that role within the apartheid system. So technically, you can apply. There's no restriction if you're an Arab, but if you haven't done conscription, then you can't. So because the Arabs are less likely to want to serve in the Israeli army, that's the way of regulating. Is that correct?
Yes. Plus the service not being provided in the villages. As I said, some villages get no electricity, get no water. We will have to carry water from next city in big tanks. I'm talking when I said about the campus, you cannot live in campus or get a scholarship because you are a traitor to the state. You're anti-state. So why you don't invest in the army? That's why they recruit a small number of Druze. You heard of Druze?
Druze. This is an ethnicity.
Yes.
Tribe.
Yes.
Yeah. Arab tribe.
Yeah, Palestinians. Yeah, they live in Middle East, in Syria and Lebanon, but there is a group of them, Palestinian Druze, and since the creation of this big Zionist settlement, their leadership, pledged to support the state. But years later, youth I don't know if he's still alive, he's old now, Salman Natur, who became member of the Israeli Communist Party, known as Rakah before. Now they call it Democratic Party of Communist Israel, whatever. At that time it was called Rakah. He created a new group called the Initiative, the Druze Initiative, and he tried to make them to leave the army. He got a little bit of success, but there is still some of these people who actually youth is still in the Israeli army. And the only reason they give them privilege, studies, the Druze towns treated like any Israeli towns because their contribution to the army.
I see.
And because they speak the Arabic, they send them to Gaza, West Bank at that time. Now it's West Bank. To control the population on behalf of the Zionist regime.
I see.
But they will not, a lot of them left the army. They speak about how they've been discriminated.
I see.
against him. They even one of them said last year, they told him, "You are a dirty Arab." And he was a member of the Israeli army.
Serving the state.
He's a group.
Yeah.
The officer told me, "You are a dirty Arab." He left the army after that comment. He resigned from the army. So just to show the nature of the racist regime.
No, yeah, I mean, this is the first I've heard how conscription is used to basically be a way of weeding out mostly Arabs, I suppose, and then of course anyone else who doesn't want to actually serve the state will then be seen as an enemy of the state. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah. Now taxation. Don't forget taxation.
Taxation.
Yeah, you will not pay tax. An Israeli guy will not pay tax. Israeli businessman like you.
So you pay more tax if you're Palestinian?
Yes. This is in Jerusalem. All Palestinian shops, because the policy is to close you down. Yeah, they call the taxation system there Arnona.
Arnona.
Yeah, Arnona means business tax. You know, like here, Her Majesty, whatever. Here, Majesty, thief money, whatever you call it in this country. Yeah.
Right.
And there they call it Arnona, and they come in and they actually impose a tax. Here they tell you how much it's a month. In UK, how much you pay tax. So your accountant submit a report that I made 10,000 this month. You have to pay 30%.
Okay.
There's a letter come to you and said you need to pay $500, $10,000.
Regardless of how much you've earned.
No. There's no.
Doesn't matter. You just pay. You pay. They decide. You pay.
No. Yeah. Yes. Right. Again, this is strange, and a lot of your listeners will be thinking, "What this guy talking about?" Also, we're offering $100 for somebody to challenge that. A lot of money to be made after your show, Richard. A lot of money from Sandy.
But the thing is, you might get taxed on it, John. You might get taxed.
Yeah, and a show like this, we can debate these issues.
Absolutely, definitely.
So if a Zionist called you, welcome him, please.
Yes, no. Any Zionists are welcome to come here and debate us. Debate John. So I am running out of time myself, actually. So we might have to bring you on another time, John, to talk about more stuff. So I wanted to get into something specific about the leadership. So we talked about the guys in Parliament, the guys in the Knesset, the Arabs in the
Knesset. Yeah.
I don't think I'll have enough time to go through your entire history of sort of which organization you were part of and all that.
I think if you think you run out of time, you send me 14 questions. You think you're going to be done in 15 minutes. Yes. I think you need another few hours.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we're not going to answer all of the questions we submitted to you. So I think we're going to have to go through we'll have to actually put some closing remarks, actually. So I think we've got about 8 more minutes that we can record. And then I'm going to have to get you on another time, John. I have to get you on maybe
anytime. Anytime. And for your free also, anytime.
Yes, no, sure. So for tonight's session, let's finish with a question on just a quick thought on the current state of. Actually, no. So let me rephrase that. We'll talk about the politics next time. Let's get into the politics next time. The question I put to you is, why do you think the US has such support for the Israelis? And I'll put it to you. Maybe I'll answer that question a bit myself. If there was no Suez Canal, do you think things would be different in Palestine?
Not really, because if you think about it, as you said, we're going to talk next time. With this issue, we're going to touch on the Arab regimes, especially the Egyptian regime today. Yeah, but the motive of the Americans who support Israel, okay, the Israeli is a military, guard dog in the Middle East. We thought after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, right? We thought Israel will be not really a very important player in the Middle East. Okay, but the problem is a lot of people don't understand that the support actually come from nearly 50 million American Christian Zionists who believe that had to be a Jewish state for Jesus to come back, the second return. Yeah. He'd be also hanged this time. They said they're having robes for him. First time with crucifixion, this time going to be hanging, Right. So this money comes from the lobby, who actually motivated by religious fanaticism. Those who believe that in order to save the world, we need to have prepare the Jewish state in Jews return to Palestine, okay, in order for Jesus to return. But the second goal of this mission is to convert all Jews to become Christians. See, it's a double-edged sword. One hand, is good that Israelis believe that it's good that these Zionists support us. In the other hand, they say, wait a minute, they want us to become Christians. And Jews, just general information, Jews and Muslims are likely to convert. Christian can convert to Jewish or Muslim, but Jews and Muslims do not do that. The nature of their religion.
Nature of the religion, okay.
Yeah. Jews believe that we have to have a clean race, Jewish only. So if your dad Jewish and your mom Jewish, and your mom Catholic, you're not a Jew.
Yes.
Yeah. If your mom
only the mother passes on.
Yes, but you're not a good Jew because your dad is Catholic. You're not a pure Jew. You're not 100% Jew. You know. So the lobby work on this aspect. Because I'm talking about now after the Cold War. If you ask me this question before the Cold War, I would tell you the political and military, obviously, mission of the Israeli entity.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, and why important. But now with the demise of the Soviet Union and there's no Cold War anymore. Why the Israelis are still getting support from the United States due to the fanatic Christian,
Christian Zionist.
This is now imagine the Suez Canal. I mean, to them it was more of like a marketing. I mean, it's business. It's not because I mean, obviously they wanted Nasser to go. There was anti-Nasser. That's also one motive. Today they don't have Nasser. They have Netanyahu in Cairo.
Al-Sisi, his Netanyahu in Cairo.
Well, they make a photocopy, clone, and they create a copy because Gaza blockade. They come from both sides.
Yes, Egypt also blockaded, right? Is blockading it.
And even when you travel to Egypt and come back to Gaza, the Israelis, through cameras and a computer system, they know who's in and who's out. So they monitor the entrance between Gaza and West Bank, the entry, through their technology. The Egyptians supply them with all information. If you know the smuggling of goods between Gaza and Egypt, you remember the smuggling of goods?
Yes, underground, right?
Yeah. Now it will not work because the Egyptian traitor dug kind of like a trench, 40 meters. Right. And they diverted the sea water from the sea to that 40 meters. So which Palestinian going to go 40 meters to dig in a hole?
That's deep. It's very deep.
And if it's happened, one time it happened, 6 of them got killed.
Right.
Drawn in the water.
Drawn in the water. Yeah.
So it's to be honest with you, the problem with the Palestinian situation in Gaza is not only the Israeli Zionist regime, it's the Zionist puppet of regime of Egypt. I went for a week to Cairo that time, and I see the situation very bad there, very bad.
Right. I think that's a good point for us to leave it then, because we're going to have another one of these maybe next week and record all of this, maybe make it a bit of a series so that we can tell the full story. Because I think today we've covered, how the state works, this conscription role, some of the atrocities, some of them committed against you, particularly for being a journalist, being shot for being a journalist. So I think our next episode, if you're watching and listening to this, is we're going to be talking then about the political side of these things, the Palestinian political organizations, the Arab states and their current role and where things are going. So the second part will be about that, I guess, John.
Yes, we have to talk about also the Arab little settlement, because this is an American settlement in Palestine. The Dubai, Qatar, this is an American settlement and British settlements.
Right. All of this stuff.
So,
thank you so much, John, for coming and sharing this stuff. I think this is really interesting. So we'll see you then for the next episode. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for inviting me, Richard.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
See you next
time. Bye. See you.